This is an interesting talk and discussion how we actually define who is a tourist, who is some kind of a scientist who wants to kind of more be identified as such and not as a tourism person who is just carried to do leisure things. This is something I'm going to touch in my next book. It comes out in actually in New York in next year. It's about space experience. So I think this is something that I'm really now concentrating in one of the chapters, really classifying what is meant by space tourism and the tourist itself, because this seems to be very theoretical difference. I'm from Europe, obviously from the Nordic, the Scandinavia. We are just completely referring it as a tourism in a way. If you go there for any other purpose as a trained like astronaut, you are not a professional. You are basic because it needs to be defined for just because somebody needs to insert you. You need to, if something goes wrong, this definition is really important under which policy you are. Are you actually some kind of trained?
From an insurance perspective, wait a second. I've never really thought about that piece of it. So the definition matters because the insurance policies will pay out differently if you're a different classification.
Yeah.
Well, that's new to me. I never thought about that before.
There are a lot of things I have noticed just because obviously I have been doing this for 30 years and nobody really understands. I mean, we are talking about the second biggest industry. Whatever movements you do, besides your own feet, if you decide to walk, you suddenly become part of the tourism industry from some angle. We all need to have a place to sleep. We all need to eat. We are kind of in the Maslow's hierarchy. The base needs a stage.
Right.
So that is already then you are joining tourism industry. Somebody's being there is a hospitality industry that provides all that. The transportation industry, they are all subcategories of this big tourism industry bird. But I have noticed, especially with the Americans, it's kind of somehow belittling, be called as tourist, especially to the space environment. It suddenly becomes something that almost you're identifying yourself like some kind of mass group person who just goes there to take photos. That's the idea of
it's true, right? If we're just hanging out with a cocktail, we're not really doing space, right? Yeah.
So it sounds like almost like American space tourists needs to be very justifying their existence there by doing some really rhetorically good sounding job whilst they are in that environment. Then it's kind of okay.
Yeah. Dennis Tito was, so his wealth came from private equity, I think. And
commercial real estate. He did a lot of that.
Did he? Yeah. And he didn't want to be seen as just coasting on his cash. The Katy Perry crowd didn't really want to be seen. It's one of the reasons why they took so much heat. They didn't really want to be seen as just coasting on their fame. So, in the chat, and I posted earlier, Dr. Plata is saying, look, tourism is it. Like he's a believer. So I didn't know that about Doug, but he is a believer that it's super lucrative. So how do you get from Dennis Tito to Katy Perry to a multi-billion-dollar industry? What are the steps we need to take to get from here to there?
Well, we have to understand the Dennis Tito. He became like a cosmonaut. He trained for 6 months for this.
Yeah.
So it's not that he only went there just
right.
When we think of now these other, like for example, what Katy Perry did, it was just a minimal training. It's not like she was in the training camp for 6 months just for this kind of space jump, as I do classify when you go to this, what has been now offered for about this 100 tourists that have been in the space environment, which is the Kármán line, about the 100 kilometers. That's where they have been, basically, most of them. And so it's not that you need to pick up 6 months in the astronaut camp just to become an astronaut. So that's the difference already. When we talk about tourism is something like this is like a kind of adventure tourism in a way. Also, when we think of you want to suddenly go to Mount Everest, just to
Yeah.
like trek there and experience that. So you are kind of seeking an experience in space environment. When we have this word experience, is it a scientific experience? It's some kind of motivational view of, really making yourself as somebody else almost in another environment. That is tourism already. When we travel, we have a motivation of some kind. It could be just that I want to relax and have my cocktail, or it could be that I travel because I want to really spiritualize myself to become almost like another person when I come back. So there are all these different motivational factors already when we travel. So let's say that somebody wants to really do now this new experiment that you can already do. Let's say you go to ocean. It's a similar kind of environment for like human body. You need to have some kind of space, like a wetsuit and all that, like gear that you can operate in that environment. You may do some kind of ocean studies whilst you are there, and so that is your motive. But you are needing to have the hospitality tourism industry just to take you to that spot. So that is how tourism industry is already combined with the space environment, even though your motivational factor of yourself could be something really science-based. But it still doesn't take out of the fact that you are actually kind of inside of this tourism industry package when you are not a professional, just literally, but like let's say astronauts have been working for NASA, that's your job. So that's something that needs to be, even though it sounds belittling to Americans, I don't know why, it's something that you need to really remember, that tourism is now a key to this whole thing. It's the key for the public to really understand the space environment. We do understand it now through science of movies. I mean, Hollywood have been already doing this for 50 years.
Yeah.
We all have a vision of space just because of the Hollywood films. And it's not we know they're actors, they're part of the Hollywood industry. So it's anyway, that has educated most of us the most. We feel like we already know space just because we have been watching all these space films.
Right.
So space is already a very familiar space for all of us just through the films, even though nobody has really been there. And we're all kind of having these visions and opinions just based on what we have been kind of, visualizing for since we were all like kids. So that's something to be remembered, that tourism is a tool that the wider public is kind of now brought in to realize that there is actually something happening there. We are trying to build a new place for humans. Like that's something that all these space billionaires kind of justify these colonies, that they want to ensure that the humans, we are just able to live in another planet in case there is an emergency in the planet. We don't really have a place be at the moment. We don't have any other place to go if there is an astronaut coming. So that's something we have to always remember, that we are in a very fragile state with our Earth. We could be just, So that's one of the, but my book is kind of, because I wrote up this whole book about sustainable space tourism. That's one of the angles of the sustainability, sustaining the humans. Then you need to have these space colonies. You need to maybe have at least, we are starting with these in the next 5 years with the orbital hotels. They're not already being designed and built. And that's something already, but you are kind of, it's called hotel. It's not called like an astronaut, scientific camp. It's actually called hotel.
Hotel. All right. That's a good point. So there's about 6 in the United States. I don't know what the number looks like in Europe and Japan, Asia, but there's about 6 U.S. space station companies in development. Let's give them all the benefit of the doubt, and they all succeed. And there's, let's just say, 50 people at a time rotating through those various stations, which, by the way, would be pretty damn cool, because right now we're kind of capped at about 10 in the 2 space stations that are up. That would be huge. What does the numbers look like? Do you have any idea of cash flow? How many people are going to do this? What they're willing to pay? Do you have any of those studies?
Well, it has been estimated. Well, I have been writing this in my journal articles, kind of just studying how the like UBS, the Swiss forecasters, they estimated already like 5 years ago that it would be space tourism industry would be around like 4 billion by 2030. But now the estimates, just because of these developments that have been just recently taken place, or because we have NASA now involved, and it has the lunar goal that you have actually suddenly the government also in this private new space business kind of joining it, building the infrastructure. So now it suddenly is like has really multiplied. It's almost like something like 100 billion by the year 2030. And now you have to understand that tourism, it also includes now the interest for the general space phenomena. We are talking now terrestrial space tourism that is part of this space tourism package. So that's already the interest for people to visit like a earthbound space activities that we are talking about space exhibitions, museums, space, like watching Northern Lights trips, the stargazing trips, virtual reality, space tourism. So all that is now part of the space tourism package when you think of the money wise.
Okay.
So we do not really have to go even to space environment. It's this whole phenomena, and this space tourism industry now also has basically if you really have three categories. You have a terrestrial space tourism that is earthbound. Then you have a suborbital that we talk about now, these space jumps that we have been seeing these commercial space companies do and provide, and also these hotels. And then we have this lunar also. And then we have the kind of outer space tourism that includes the moon and Mars and whatever else. So you have kind of three different sectors underneath the space tourism industry word. So it's not only going to moon, it's actually already including the activities we have Earth bound. And that's something that I would advise now whoever is dealing with, like startup or something, that this terrestrial space tourism phase, that's already part of the hype. And that's already something that you can start providing, like virtual reality experiences before even nobody is even able to be in the space environment, because we do have this bodily issue to solve, as I mentioned in the meanwhile.
Well, but what are now the actual realities, the hard realities of supply and demand of what's going on right now?